In 2019, researchers at the University of Michigan discovered something that shouldn't exist. Deep in the center of the mammalian brain, they found an organ producing DMT, the most powerful psychedelic compound known to humanity. The same molecule that causes people to meet machine elves, experience ego death, and access what they describe as more real realities than our own. This organ, the pineal gland, a tiny piece of tissue that René Descartes called the seat of the soul, that ancient Egyptians may have mapped in the Eye of Horus, that Hindu mystics say is your third eye. And here's what's going to mess with your head. It's been sitting in your skull this entire time, producing psychedelic compounds for reasons science can't explain. Welcome to the Rabbit Hole Chronicles. I'm Percival Blackwood. Close your eyes. Press your finger between your eyebrows, right in the center of your forehead. According to traditions spanning from ancient Egypt to Silicon Valley tech labs, you've just touched the gateway to enlightenment, the portal to higher dimensions, the antenna to cosmic consciousness. 57% of Americans now believe in some form of third eye or pineal activation. Yoga studios teach pineal meditation. Wellness influencers sell pineal decalcification cleanses. Tech executives are microdosing and practicing ancient meditation techniques to hack this mysterious gland. But here's what makes this different from your typical New Age trend. The science keeps getting weirder. The pineal gland is real. You have one. Right now, sitting 3 inches behind your forehead is a piece of tissue no bigger than a grain of rice. It's the only unpaired organ in your entire brain. Singular. Unique. Alone at the geometric center of your consciousness. For decades, scientists dismissed it as a vestigial remnant, a useless leftover from evolution. Then we discovered it produces melatonin, regulating our sleep cycles. Interesting, but not exactly mystical. But in 2013, researchers found DMT in the pineal glands of living rats. Then in 2019, that University of Michigan team not only confirmed DMT production, but found the enzymes necessary to manufacture it throughout the brain. DMT dimethyltryptamine. The spirit molecule? The compound that causes users to consistently report meeting the same entities across cultures. Machine elves, mantis beings, crystalline intelligences. Experiences so profound that Dr. Rick Strassman, who ran the only legal DMT studies in America, began questioning the nature of reality itself. Your brain is literally producing the same compound that shamans have used for thousands of years to pierce the veil between worlds, right now, as you're listening to this. But let's back up, because this story doesn't start in a modern lab. It starts in ancient Egypt, where things get genuinely unsettling. The Eye of Horus, that stylized eye symbol you've seen everywhere from dollar bills to Instagram bios. The Egyptians used it for protection, healing, divine wisdom, standard deity symbolism, nothing special. Until 2019, when a team of neurosurgeons published something in the journal Neurosurgery that made everyone stop and reconsider. When you take a cross-section of the human brain, specifically a mid-sagittal view, and overlay it with the Eye of Horus, something bizarre happens. The symbol maps almost perfectly onto our neuroanatomy. The eyebrow curve matches the corpus callosum. The spiral corresponds to the thalamus. And the triangular iris, that's exactly where the pineal gland sits. The Egyptians didn't have MRI machines. They didn't dissect brains systematically. In fact, they thought the brain was so worthless, they pulled it out through the nose during mummification and threw it away. Yet their most powerful protective symbol accidentally diagrams the exact organ they supposedly knew nothing about, with the pineal gland at its center. Egyptian texts overflow with references to inner sight and divine vision, the eye of the mind, the eye of truth, the eye of God inside the human mind. Modern interpreters claim these reference the pineal gland, and while we can't prove that, the coincidence is staggering. Egyptian priests told Greek visitors like Solon that their knowledge was infantile compared to Egypt's ancient records. They claimed to preserve wisdom from before the floods, from a time when humans were closer to the gods. Makes you wonder what exactly they knew. And more importantly, what was lost when the Library of Alexandria burned. Meanwhile, halfway across the world, Hindu yogis were developing their own third eye tradition without any contact with Egypt. They called it the Ajna Chakra, the command center. Located right between the eyebrows, exactly where the pineal gland projects to on the skull. But they weren't subtle about it. Hindu gods like Shiva are literally depicted with a third eye on their forehead. When Shiva opens this eye, it burns through illusion to reveal ultimate truth. Sometimes it shoots fire that annihilates entire universes. The Hindus weren't playing around with metaphors. The techniques for opening the third eye are remarkably specific across cultures. Focus your attention between your eyebrows. Visualize an indigo light. Practice specific breathing exercises. Fast periodically. Avoid certain foods. It's basically every modern pineal activation guide, except these instructions are 3,000 years old. The Hindus identified two serpent energy channels, Ida and Pingala, that wind up the spine and meet at the third eye, right where the pineal and pituitary glands sit. When Kundalini energy rises through these channels and reaches the Ajna chakra, you achieve instant enlightenment, or you go insane. The texts are surprisingly honest about that risk. Even in the Americas, indigenous shamans spoke of visions emanating from the center of the head. The Dasana people of Colombia describe ayahuasca visions as coming from a spot they locate precisely where the pineal sits. The Taoists called it the Niwan Palace, or Mudball Palace. Weird name until you realise the pineal gland looks exactly like a tiny mudball. Every major spiritual tradition on earth independently identified the centre of the forehead as the focal point of higher consciousness. Before anatomy, before brain scans, before anyone knew the pineal gland existed, then came 1649. René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, is dissecting brains and having an existential crisis. He's trying to solve the mind-body problem. How does our immaterial soul interface with our physical body? He notices something that stops him cold. Every structure in the brain comes in pairs. 2 hemispheres, 2 of everything, except for this weird little pinecone thing dead center. The pineal gland stands alone. Descartes becomes obsessed. Here, he declares, is the principal seat of the soul. The pineal gland is where consciousness meets matter, where thoughts become flesh, where the divine spark animates the machine. His reasoning was logical for the time. The soul is unified and indivisible. The pineal is the only unified, indivisible structure in the brain. Therefore, the pineal must be where the soul enters the body. He developed elaborate theories about how it worked. The pineal could tilt and swivel, directing animal spirits through hollow tubes in the brain like some kind of spiritual air traffic controller. We know now this is completely wrong. The pineal doesn't swivel, there are no hollow tubes. But Descartes intuited something interesting. He sensed the pineal was special, even if he couldn't explain why. What he didn't know is that the pineal actually does receive visual information through a complex pathway from the retina. It responds to light and darkness, acting as a transducer between the external environment and our internal hormonal state. Not the seat of the soul exactly, but definitely an interface between outer and inner worlds. Descartes' ideas ignited Western occultism. If the greatest philosopher of the age said the pineal was where soul meets body, then maybe this was the organ the ancients were talking about. The third eye, the gateway. By the late 1800s, enter Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, con artist, mystic, probable Russian spy, definite chaos agent. In 1875, she founded the Theosophical Society, which would transform the pineal gland from anatomical curiosity into full-blown occult obsession. Blavatsky claimed she'd studied with hidden masters in Tibet. According to her, humans once had an actual third eye in the back of their heads during the time of the Lemurians, a lost race on a sunken Pacific continent. As humanity became more material, less spiritual, this eye withdrew into the skull, becoming the pineal gland, dormant but not dead, waiting. In The Secret Doctrine, she calls the pineal the very key to the highest and divinest consciousness in man. When activated, it grants cosmic consciousness and perception of higher dimensions. But here's where Blavatsky gets eerily specific. She noted that the pineal contains little mineral concretions, brain sand or corpora arenacea. She claimed these granules are absent in children under 7 and in people with cognitive disabilities. This, she said, proved the pineal was connected to higher consciousness. She was writing in 1888. How did she know about pineal calcification patterns? This wasn't common medical knowledge. Yet she correctly identified that calcification increases with age and made the connection to consciousness development. Lucky guess? Or did her hidden masters know something? Her followers ran with it. Charles Leadbeater claimed he could see the pineal clairvoyantly, describing it extending an etheric tube from the forehead to examine distant objects. Annie Besant went further, claiming the pineal was literally a wireless transmitter for thoughts. In 1904, she described telepathy as brain-to-brain radio communication via pineal transmission. Marconi had barely invented radio, yet Besant was describing biological wireless technology. The Theosophists developed elaborate practices. No alcohol. It damaged pineal development. Specific meditations on the forehead. Visualization of violet lights. They created the template every modern third eye guide still follows. They also warned it was dangerous. Force the pineal open too quickly and you'd go insane. The cosmic consciousness would overwhelm an unprepared mind. Fast forward to the 1990s. Dr. Rick Strassman gets permission to do something unprecedented. Legally administer massive doses of DMT in a clinical setting. His theory involved our friend the pineal gland. He proposed it might produce DMT at key moments. Birth, death, near-death experiences, mystical visions. The pineal as a natural drug factory pumping out the spirit molecule when we transition between states of being. His research was mind-shattering. Subjects reported experiences so profound, so consistent, that Strassman himself began questioning reality. Multiple participants independently described meeting the same entities. Machine elves, mantis beings, jeweled self-transforming basketballs. I'm not making this up. These are their words. They described parallel dimensions more real than our reality. Several became convinced they'd experienced death and rebirth. The consistency across subjects was unnerving. Either DMT was accessing something real, or human brains hallucinate in remarkably similar ways. Then came the breakthrough. In 2013, researchers found DMT in the pineal glands of living rats. The 2019 University of Michigan study confirmed not just DMT, but the enzymes needed to produce it. They also discovered something unexpected. When they removed rats' pineal glands, the brain still produced DMT. The pineal wasn't the sole source. This should have killed the pineal DMT hypothesis. Instead, it made things weirder. If the brain has multiple DMT production sites, why? What evolutionary advantage comes from naturally producing the most powerful psychedelic known? And even if the amounts are tiny, too small for psychedelic effects normally, what if there are conditions where production spikes? Some researchers propose that during extreme stress, oxygen deprivation, or death, the brain floods itself with DMT. This could explain near-death experiences, the tunnel of light, meeting deceased relatives, life reviews, all consistent with a massive DMT release. But we can't prove it. We can't exactly kill people in controlled settings to measure their pineal DMT levels. What we know is something profound happens neurochemically during these extreme states, and the pineal, with its position outside the blood-brain barrier, is perfectly positioned to be involved. Now we need to talk about fluoride, because you can't discuss the pineal gland today without addressing the calcification controversy. The pineal gland calcifies. By your teens, it starts accumulating calcium phosphate crystals. By middle age, your pineal might be more rock than gland. On X-rays, it shows up as a bright white spot, like a pearl in your brain's centre. This is normal. But normal doesn't mean optimal. In the 1990s, researcher Jennifer Luke discovered the pineal accumulates more fluoride than any other body tissue. Significantly more. Concentrations that would be toxic anywhere else. The conspiracy-minded connected the dots immediately. Fluoride in water, pineal calcification, third eye suppression. The government puts fluoride in water claiming it prevents cavities. But the real purpose is calcifying your pineal gland, cutting you off from higher consciousness. I know how this sounds, but some research is genuinely troubling. Luke's animal studies showed fluoride accumulation led to earlier puberty and decreased melatonin production. A 2019 rat study found fluoride-free diets resulted in more pineal cells. Research has linked pineal calcification to Alzheimer's, migraines, and sleep disorders. But context matters. Pineal calcification happens even without water fluoridation. Egyptian mummies have calcified pineals. It appears to be natural aging that fluoride might accelerate but doesn't cause. Scientific consensus says water fluoridation is safe and one of public health's greatest achievements. The levels used are far below harmful doses. Dental health benefits are proven. But we don't fully understand calcification's implications. Does a calcified pineal function differently beyond melatonin? Does calcification affect theoretical DMT production? Did ancient meditation practices prevent or reverse calcification? What we have is a thriving industry of pineal decalcification products. Apple cider vinegar, boron, iodine, chlorella. None with solid scientific backing, but all with passionate testimonials from people claiming their third eye opened after these protocols. The interesting part? Many who try to decalcify report similar experiences: forehead pressure, geometric patterns with closed eyes, vivid dreams, out-of-body experiences. Placebo? Maybe. But placebos don't usually cause such specific, consistent effects. Something strange is happening in Silicon Valley. The engineers who built our digital reality are obsessed with hacking their pineal glands. It started with microdosing LSD and psilocybin for creativity, but it's evolved into targeted third eye activation. I spoke with Marcus, a developer at a major tech company, who requested anonymity. He meditates 2 hours daily, specifically on his pineal. He's eliminated fluoride completely. Special filters, fluoride-free toothpaste, organic everything. Monthly ayahuasca ceremonies in Peru. I'm rational, Marcus told me. I code for a living. But every breakthrough I've had, every moment of true innovation, comes from a state that feels different, like I'm accessing information from somewhere else. Marcus isn't alone. WhatsApp groups with hundreds of tech workers share pineal protocols. Palo Alto meditation centers teach third eye workshops to Google employees. Venture capitalists fund consciousness-expanding research. Why are the most scientifically minded people on Earth pursuing mystical practices centered on a tiny brain gland? They see consciousness as the next frontier of human enhancement. If the pineal regulates consciousness states through melatonin, possibly DMT or unknown mechanisms, then optimizing it is just biohacking. Some go extreme, transcranial magnetic stimulation, targeting the pineal region. Specific light frequencies based on research showing the pineal responds to photons through the skull. Underground ultrasound experiments stimulating pineal tissue. Results? Mixed but intriguing. Enhanced pattern recognition, increased creativity. Downloads. Sudden insights seeming to come from nowhere. Some claim limited precognition, knowing who's calling before checking, sensing decision outcomes beforehand. When people who build algorithms start talking about accessing non-local information through pineal activation, maybe we should pay attention. Before we dive into what science actually says, I need to tell you about Pinocchio, Yes, the wooden puppet, because this is where things get properly weird. Carlo Collodi published The Adventures of Pinocchio in 1883 during the occult revival. In Italian, Pino means pine. Pinocchio literally translates to pine eye or pine seed. Think about the plot esoterically. A puppet, no consciousness, no free will, just wooden limbs on strings, transforms into a real boy. He gains consciousness, autonomy, a soul. Through trials teaching him to distinguish truth from lies, reality from illusion, his nose grows when he lies. The nose, right below the forehead, in front of where the pineal would be. Every lie extends it further, like a wooden third eye shooting from his face. Only when he learns truth can he become real. The blue fairy who grants life? She appears surrounded by light, touching his forehead to awaken him. Disney's version has her literally touch between his eyes with her wand, exactly the third eye location. She says, "Let your conscience be your guide." Conscience, consciousness. Conscience, with knowledge. Esoteric interpreters see Pinocchio as spiritual awakening allegory, pineal activation, transforming unconscious puppets into conscious beings with free will. The controlling strings represent lower chakras, animal instincts. Cutting them means ascending to higher consciousness. Even the whale swallowing him has been interpreted as the darkness during spiritual awakening. The dark night of the soul, the void when the third eye first opens. Pinocchio must enter the beast's belly and emerge transformed, reborn. But here's what really gets me. Collodi was connected to Freemasons. He wrote for Masonic publications. The Masons, with their sacred geometry and inner transformation emphasis, absolutely knew pineal symbolism. Their lodges overflow with pine cones, all-seeing eyes, inner illumination references. Did Collodi encode a Masonic initiation story as a children's tale? Was Pinocchio always meant to be read on two levels? Kids' morality tale and esoteric third eye activation manual? Disney seemed to think so. Walt Disney, allegedly connected to esoteric societies, made specific choices. The Blue Fairy's wand creates a spiralling light vortex remarkably similar to third eye activation descriptions. Jiminy Cricket, the conscience, literally lives inside Pinocchio's head. The film drips with occult symbolism beyond any simple morality tale. Once you see the pine symbolism, transformation narrative, consciousness awakening imagery, you can't unsee it. Either it's history's biggest coincidence, or Collodi hid a pineal activation manual inside a puppet show. The Vatican has a giant pine cone sculpture in its courtyard, the Fontana della Pigna, there since ancient Roman times. The Pope's staff features a pine cone. They appear in religious art across cultures. Assyrian carvings, Hindu temples, Egyptian artifacts. The obvious connection? The pineal gland looks exactly like a tiny pine cone. Its name comes from Latin pinea, meaning pine cone. Is this proof ancient religions knew the pineal's spiritual significance? A hidden tradition preserved through symbols, while explicit knowledge was suppressed? Or just that the pine cone, with its perfect Fibonacci spiral, naturally symbolises growth and enlightenment unrelated to brain anatomy? Catholics say pine cones represent regeneration and eternal life. Occultists say they're coded third eye references. Historians say they're probably just nice decorations that acquired religious significance. But when the same symbol appears repeatedly in spiritual awakening contexts across supposedly unconnected cultures, you wonder, lost global tradition, universal human intuition about this brain region, or pattern matching where no pattern exists? So what does mainstream science actually say about all this third eye business? The pineal gland is absolutely crucial, but for non-mystical reasons. It's your body's primary melatonin source, regulating circadian rhythm. Mess with your pineal, you mess with sleep, mood, immune system, potentially lifespan. It's involved in sexual development, regulating puberty onset through complex hormonal interactions. Children with pineal tumours often experience precocious puberty. This isn't mystical, it's endocrinology. As for DMT production, yes, the pineal produces trace amounts, but we're talking nanograms, not the milligrams needed for psychedelic effects. Dr. David Nichols, leading psychedelic researcher, states bluntly, the pineal gland does not produce enough DMT to produce psychoactive effects. The idea it's a vestigial third eye? Partially true. Some reptiles and amphibians have a pineal complex, including a parietal eye, detecting light. In humans, the pineal develops from the same embryonic tissue as eyes and maintains photosensitive properties. But it's not a dormant eye, waiting for awakening. It's a gland sharing evolutionary history with visual organs. Calcification? Real, but probably not conspiracy. It happens naturally with age, like arthritis or grey hair. No solid evidence exists that reducing calcification enhances consciousness or psychic abilities. The correlation between meditation and pineal activation might have merit, but not mystically. Meditation increases melatonin production. Focused attention on any body part increases blood flow there. The forehead pressure during third eye meditation could be tension from sustained focus or increased blood flow, not pineal awakening. But science can't explain why so many people, across cultures and centuries, report similar experiences focusing on this region. Why do psychedelics affecting the pineal region consistently produce expanded consciousness experiences and entity contact? Why does the pineal even have capacity to produce psychedelic compounds, even tiny amounts? Let me tell you about Sarah. A nurse, skeptical by nature, never believed in third eye stuff. Then during an intense meditation retreat, something happened. Day 6 of silent meditation. I was focusing on breath when suddenly intense pressure hit between my eyebrows, like someone pushing their thumb into my forehead. Then pop, and I swear this happened. A door opened in my head. Sarah describes her life's most profound experience, geometric patterns that seemed alive, conscious, communicating incomprehensible information, connection to every living thing, not metaphorically, but literally, feeling the experience of being tree, bird, another person. The weird part, I could suddenly see things before they happened. Little things, someone about to knock, what card would come next. It lasted 3 days, then faded. Sarah's not alone. I've collected dozens of similar accounts. After intense pineal practices, people claim temporary impossible abilities: remote viewing, telepathy, precognition, energy healing. The skeptical explanation: confirmation bias, coincidence, hallucination, self-deception. Often probably correct. But when you hear the same specific details repeatedly, forehead pressure, geometric visions, connecting to larger consciousness, you wonder. Dr. Dean Radin at the Institute of Noetic Sciences has studied these phenomena for decades. His research suggests humans might have weak but real PSI abilities enhanced in certain consciousness states possibly involving the pineal. One study showed meditators statistically significantly influenced random number generators with intention. Another found people in deep meditation could sense being stared at from another room. Effects are tiny but consistent across thousands of trials. Could the pineal be involved? No physics mechanism explains it. But physics can't explain consciousness itself, so maybe we're missing something fundamental about reality's workings. So where does this leave us? The pineal gland is real. It produces melatonin regulating sleep. It produces trace DMT amounts for unknown reasons. It calcifies with age. It responds to light and darkness. These are facts. Everything else, third eye, soul's seat, dimensional gateway, remains frustratingly between proof and disproof. We can't prove the pineal grants mystical powers, but can't fully explain why so many throughout history believed it does. Maybe truth is in the middle. Maybe the pineal, centered in our brain, receiving blood flow and neural inputs throughout our nervous system, really is special. Not magically, but as a crucial node in consciousness generating networks. Maybe meditating on this region doesn't activate spiritual antenna, but optimizes biological systems affecting our entire being experience. Or maybe mystics are right. Maybe we carry a dormant perception organ, calcified by modern life, awaiting awakening. Maybe those brave or foolish enough to force it open really glimpse beyond normal reality. What I know for certain, your brain naturally producing one of science's most powerful psychedelic compounds is weird. Every spiritual tradition independently identifying the same head spot as important is weird. People consistently having profound experiences focused on this tiny gland is weird. And when things get this weird, we're usually missing something important about how reality actually works. Next week on the Rabbit Hole Chronicles, we're diving into numbers stations. For decades, mysterious radio broadcasts have transmitted coded messages to unknown recipients. The Lincolnshire poacher, the Russian buzzer, the Cuban 5-4. Who's sending these messages? Who's receiving them? And why in the encrypted internet age are they still broadcasting? Until then, I'm Percival Blackwood, reminding you that sometimes the most profound mysteries aren't in space or government files. Sometimes they're right between your eyes, waiting for attention. Pleasant dreams, and if you see any machine elves tonight, tell them I said hi.